Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and in end of 2023 news, we've got to talk about the dumbest passwords of 2023, but we're going to go a bit beyond just listing those out, as you will see. And after examining 56 million breached and leaked passwords, the research team over at Cybernews put together some really interesting stats on this, as written by Damian Black, and we're going to use some of those, but we're also going to look at other sources that I'll mention along the way. But it was great work, and I think it's really interesting. So let's put it all together, and we're going to dive into a few different things here. First, we're obviously going to go over the dumbest passwords of 2023. You probably know all of them just as soon as I start listing it. But we're also going to talk about the top default passwords that come on devices. These are devices basically that have very weak passwords to begin with, and then they don't force you to change that password. And so we see it in the wild, a lot of default passwords on printers, routers, you name it. Now, we're also going to talk about ways that we are creating really dumb passwords, because beyond default passwords, honestly, it's on the cybersecurity community for not really teaching good password creation to the masses. But to be fair, it's also on users for not educating themselves or simply making assumptions on what a good password would be. We all do that from time to time. Now, to start, we're going to start with the dumbest passwords of 2023, and those are actually coming from NordPass, because they do that every year. They publish their 5th annual list of the 200 most common passwords, and believe me, there are repeat offenders here. And so they basically evaluated 4.3 terabytes of data related to cybersecurity incidents, and so here are the top 10 passwords for 2023 per NordPass by virtue of this, and again, all lowercase if there are letters, but the first one obviously is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We all have that on our luggage. And if you do not know that reference, thank you, Gen Z, for tuning in. On top of it, we have admin, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we're going to get any sophisticated, then the next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, password, all lowercase, 1, 2, 3, capital A, lowercase a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, getting sneaky there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. And there you go. Those are easily crackable in seconds, even using a brute force method for most of those, as we started 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and just roll on up the chain. So seconds to crack those. Now, on top of default passwords, these are basically used by workers with system access privilege, and these are very easy to hit or just simply guess. Now, Cybernews, in doing their research, found 16,981 occurrences of the top number one password, which was admin, all lowercase, ADIMIN. So with that, here are basically the top passwords for default access into devices. So admin, obviously, root is another one. If you're familiar with Linux, you know where root comes from. Guest, service, administrator, super user, one word, power user, one word, and unattend, which was an interesting one. I wasn't thinking about that, but those are basically the top 8 there of default passwords that we see. And if you have a default password on a router, a smart fridge, or whatever, please go change that. Make sure you're recording that password somewhere else, but change that password. So with that, let's talk about the ways we are creating really dumb passwords, because we use all types of things in our passwords, from whether it's things that we love or places we've been, etc., etc. And so by virtue of sifting through this, we find that we are using, a lot of us actually are using cities basically for a word in our password. And so the top 10 cities, in, again, all lowercase, because very few people are using uppercase with this stuff, excuse me, is Cali, out of Colombia, Lima, Peru, Rome, Italy, London, England, Paris, France, obviously, and I'm not talking about the countries. I'm just saying these are the cities, not the countries, but I'm telling you where they are. Sofia, which is Bulgaria, Riga, which is Latvia, Liverpool, we're heading back to England for that one, Sydney, we're going down under, and Barcelona for you people in Spain. Now, that's obviously very interesting, but again, when we are talking about things like dictionary attacks, meaning we are simply throwing a password cracker at it and we're letting it run through every word in the dictionary, not just English, it's going to find those instantly and break those. So if your password is simply Liverpool, well, it may seem great, it's a common word. People know what Liverpool is. They know that they have a football team, etc., etc. Very easy to hit, like Sydney or Rome is 4 characters. So there you go. On top of it, We also use countries in passwords as well. Now, the top 10 are very interesting, and they come from around the world. So the first one is Oman, basically, out of the Middle East, followed by Mali in Africa, India, Iran, Jordan, France, Chad, China, Canada, sorry about that, and Pakistan. And so those are very interesting. But again, very easy to brute force these things because some of these are four characters long, or in dictionary. I mean, what dictionary in the English language doesn't have the word France in it? Or Chad, which has multiple meanings, not just countries. So that's obviously a huge thing. Now, we're also using a ton of swear words in our password, again, in any dictionary that you can think of. Now, this is a family show, so I'm not going to give you that list, but I guarantee you can figure that one out for yourself very easily, especially if you're an English speaker. On top of that, we're also using brands in our passwords. Again, very easy to crack. And so this should be forbidden in this sense. Now, with that, here are the top 10 all lowercase because these are the brands we love. Apple, obviously. AMR, not sure who they are. Yahoo, without the exclamation point, of course. AES, which I know is an encryption standard, but I'm guessing it's a company. Aon, Dell, Gap, Nike, Google, and EMC without the little squared 2 on it because that's technically part of their logo, but very easy to hit. And interestingly enough, Cybernews found employees of the Dells, Apples, etc. were actually using those in their passwords and getting breached. And if you work for Apple, your password shouldn't be Apple in any way, shape, or form or have Apple in it anywhere. But apparently it's allowed per their policy, or at least it was. I hope they've changed that. We'll see. Now, on top of it, we use sports teams, and why not? So first one is the Kings, as in LA, followed by Suns, Heat, Magic, Jazz, Rangers, Reds, Lakers, Rams, and Blues. Those are the top 10. And so I'm thinking, what? No Bulls, Bears, Hawks, Sox, or Cubs? And that's because we are a lot smarter here in Chicago. Just throwing that out there for you. Now, on top of this, we also use food and food accessories like pan, ice, pie, and more. We use professions like cook, host, maid, doctor, agent. And for the record, if you're a doctor, I think you would know better. Don't write doctor in your password. On top of it, we love animals. Now, this one I found really interesting because the number one spot was an animal I was not thinking, but number one is ant. And I'm guessing maybe that's a commentary on our work hierarchies. I don't know. But number 2 is cat, which makes sense. Number 3 is rat. Figure that one out. Number 4 is dog. Okay, everybody loves dogs. Mostly, I guess. On top of that, we have fish, jay, as in the bird, ray, as in stingray, bat, ape, and eel. And so that is really crazy. Now, on top of this, we are doing all of these things, integrating these things that are easily crackable through dictionary attacks or brute force attacks and other methods that we use to crack passwords. And we do it all the time. It's part of the day job in cybersecurity. But our password lengths suck as well. The default is the longer the better. Now, 8 characters with 3 or less character sets. Character sets meaning uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters like exclamation point, question mark, that kind of thing. Basically, 8 characters with 3 character sets or less is by far the number one length and character set attribute used in passwords. That's fairly easy to crack these days, given the firepower that we have. The other top 4 are also not good because number 2 through 5 is 4 characters in length, which is nothing to crack, 6, which is very easy to crack, followed by 9, which is slightly harder to crack than 8, but is still doable, and 7, which is pretty easy to crack as well. And so we are just not creating passwords that are long enough to really sustain, good security that will thwart the different types of attacks that we use to try and crack a password. And so with that, now that you know what our passwords are, we're making them pretty dumb. And for the record, thank you to Cybernews, author Damian Black for Cybernews, and a little bit from NordPass as well for much of this data. The question then becomes, how do we create better and more secure passwords? The answer is actually very simple. There's 3 different things that I think you should do. First, length is your best friend. The longer the password, the better. So I'll give you a perfect example of this. On a mobile phone, there's no reason why you couldn't have a 14 or 15 character password. And if you're thinking, Nick, you're absolutely high if you think I'm punching in a 14 character plus password into my Android or my iPhone, my answer to that is biometrics. you pretty much never see the password because you've got Face ID or Thumb or whatever you're using for biometrics. You may see it when the phone reboots to, let's say, update itself, but if your phone is ever lost or stolen, because iPhone and Android encrypt themselves now by default, that is a very hard thing to crack, especially if you're holding compliant data. On top of it, basically you should have 4 character sets. In other words, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. So a longer password with those is absolutely great, and it takes forever to possibly break those through brute force, or if you've got multiple words in it, it's very hard even to discover that in a joined dictionary attack. So length is your best friend. And I'll give you this example. I have one password to decrypt a laptop that I travel with. It's about 30 characters long, 4 character sets, and it is a phrase from my childhood I will never forget unless I go senile. And growing up in the house, we had English, German, Spanish, and Hungarian, so feel free to figure that one out. But that's the point, is that is essentially uncrackable. And while you can crack it, it would take an enormous amount of firepower and forever to do. But it can eventually be done. The sun would probably burn out if you're using the brute force method before you ever figure that out. But that's the point. And the final point in creating good security around your logins or your devices or whatever it is to enable multi-factor authentication wherever you can. Go get that, download that Authenticator app and pair it. Facebook, Amazon, Google, take your pick. Every major platform has multi-factor authentication. And if you're using Authenticator app, it is very hard to hit because unlike text messages, which can be copied using like a SIM attack method, like SIM jacking, SIM swapping, all those kinds of things, they can't get it. Same with email multi-factor authentication, which is considered weak because if an attacker's in your email, you're just emailing them the code. So go get that Authenticator app or use a hardware token, but Authenticator apps are just the balance between good security and ease of use for just the general public. So those are your dumbest passwords. Those are why those passwords are dumb, how we are dumb making passwords, and what you can do to fix it. So happy New Year's, everybody. I hope this helps, but we've got to do better in 2024 with our default passwords and our reused passwords. Take care. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.